Good evening, everyone. This is Dari on WorldStreams Radio. Thank you to our audience from all over the world for joining us tonight. To learn more about WorldStreams Radio, visit our website, worldstreams.org. You can also find us now on Facebook at facebook.com/worldstreams. Our guest tonight is Barbara Slavin. Barbara Slavin is an expert on U.S. foreign policy and the author of a 2007 book on Iran entitled Bitter Friends, Bosom Enemies, Iran, the U.S., and the Twisted Path to Confrontation. She was assistant managing editor for World and National Security at the Washington Times from July 2008 through December 2009. She also accompanied 3 secretaries of state on their official travels and also reported from Iran, Libya, Israel, Egypt, North Korea, Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, and Syria. And she's lived in Russia, China, Japan, and Egypt. Barbara is a regular commentator on U.S. foreign policy on National Public Radio, the Public Broadcasting System, and C-SPAN. Hi there, Saeed. Hello and welcome, Barbara. It's an honor to have you with us tonight.
Hello, Dari, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And good evening to you, Barbara. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Sure, my pleasure.
Barbara, we're approaching the anniversary of 9/11. Shortly after 9/11, you wrote in your book that Iran made some serious overtures towards the U.S. Bush very much rejected them. How much of an opportunity was missed to normalize relations with Iran?
Well, of course, it's impossible to know whether, this actually could have succeeded. The Iranian political system is a very complicated organism, as you well know, and there were many people, even at that time, who were nervous about better relations with the United States. But I still believe that there was an opportunity, perhaps the best opportunity, that we've had since the Iranian Revolution to improve the relations between the United States and Iran. And I'm afraid that the Bush administration did not take adequate measures to take advantage of that opportunity. President Bush was determined to defeat all terrorism of global reach. He did not distinguish really between Al-Qaeda, Iraq, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran. He saw them all as part of the same organism. And as a result, he alienated what could have been allies in Iran, and he lost a number of opportunities.
Well, why do you think motivated this approach?
Well, as I said, I don't think Bush really saw distinctions. I think that there was something about 9/11 that touched off in him and others a desire to somehow rid the world of quote-unquote evil. I think he really believed it. I think that Vice President Cheney, in particular, really believed it. And, after the United States was able to overturn the Taliban and then Saddam Hussein in quick succession, I think this country succumbed, at least the leadership, succumbed to hubris and thought that, all of these regimes are just going to fall one by one. What they didn't understand, of course, was that by getting rid of the Taliban in Afghanistan and Saddam Hussein in Iraq, they were actually empowering the Iranian government, eliminating its chief rivals. And so they were really doing Iran a favor. I think President Khatami was a serious player. And what people have to understand is that at that time, he had the backing of the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, to make these overtures. From the fall of 2001 through the spring of 2003, U.S. and Iranian diplomats met in Geneva and Paris and had very serious conversations about Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda, even about Iraq. And these conversations led to an offer of negotiations in 2003, an agenda for talks that was presented to the State Department via the Swiss, who represent U.S. interests in Iran. But it was never given serious consideration in Washington. As I mentioned, the U.S. government succumbed to hubris because Saddam Hussein had just fallen. Now, if negotiations had begun then in 2003, you can imagine where we would be now. Iran's nuclear program would not be so advanced, and it's quite possible that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad might never have been elected president or re-elected president.
So you were saying that the nuke program that Iran was after could not have really happened. What would be the assurance, considering given?
Yeah, that's not what I said. I just said that if negotiations had begun in 2003, chances are that Iran would not have advanced. The program would not have advanced to the stage that it has now, and Iran would not be so close to the capability to make a nuclear weapon.
Okay. Now here is probably the million-dollar question. What does Iran have to gain from a nuke, and what is Iran losing right now?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for Iran, certainly the fact that it has a program to enrich uranium is very important as a prestige item. It's something that Ahmadinejad talks about nonstop, and other Iranians do as well. The feeling that Iran has a right to this kind of very advanced technology. It serves to intimidate others in the region. Allows Iran to sort of puff itself up and presumably gives some sort of comfort to Iran's partners, such as Hezbollah. But I think it also has a downside, which some Iranians recognize. It has terrified the Arab Gulf states to the point that they are now cooperating with the United States militarily in a way that we haven't seen for 20 years. Saudi Arabia, others are buying lots and lots of U.S. weaponry. They're permitting the United States to have its flotilla of ships in the Persian Gulf. And so it's actually cementing the military relationship between the Arab Gulf and the United States that is probably not in Iran's interest.
Do you think that Saudi Arabia, which is the number one customer of the United States, they spent something like $5 billion in 2009. Do you think that their purchasing of U.S. arms is a result of their fears of Iran, or are there any other fears?
I think that's the primary reason for this kind of purchase. I think they're terrified of attacks on their oil installations in particular. In the 90s, under Rafsanjani and Khatami, there was a kind of thaw between Saudi Arabia and Iran, but that relationship has really gone south now because of Ahmadinejad's extremely belligerent foreign policy.
So this is really not, let's throw in Israel for a minute here. This is not really also as a result of their fear of Israel, is it?
No, Saudi Arabia isn't afraid of Israel. Saudi Arabia and Israel agree on Iran. That's another irony.
And it's very much Sunni versus the Shia, the Shia system of belief.
Well, that's obviously part of it. Saudi Arabia is concerned about its own Shiite minority and doesn't treat its Shiite minority very well. But I think this is really associated with the particular policies that Iran has adopted since Ahmadinejad became president in 2005. I mean, he has really undone all of the dialogue of civilizations, everything that Khatami worked so hard to build. You may remember when Khatami had this big conference, I think it was an Islamic Organization of Islamic Conference meeting in Tehran. They built a new headquarters for it. He got all these Muslim nations to come. He got the Saudis to come. And it was a sign that Iran somehow had given up its revolutionary zeal. It was no longer going to try to spread revolution throughout the region and stir up Shiites, Arab Shiites, as a kind of fifth column in these countries. Now we've seen all of that really being rolled back. And, part of it is that Iran has been taking advantage of opportunities. As I mentioned, the United States overthrew Hussein. So, Iran had a free field in which to operate in Iraq. Things like this, Iraq was always the counterbalance to Iran in the region. So this has totally spooked the Sunni regimes. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, others are absolutely hysterical about rising Iranian influence and Shiite power.
So Ahmadinejad has seen an opportunity in actually proving his unwillingness to work together with the West as a result of the U.S. being in Iraq. Could that be a true assumption to make?
Well, it's a combination of things. As I said, the U.S. missed opportunities, and there were even some opportunities with Ahmadinejad. I remember well in 2006, early 2006, interviewing him, interviewing the then National Security Advisor, Ali Larijani, and they were making all kinds of overtures, even to Bush at that point. But I think it was very difficult for the United States. You know, Khatami was one sort of leader. Ahmadinejad is very different. His language about the Holocaust, his threats against Israel make it very, very difficult for any American administration to deal with him. So he claims he wants to engage, but then, he spoils